Thank you, Senator Wyden. And you have outlined the angst that comes every year from these counties, from these small communities that are so greatly impacted when they don't know, are they going to be getting their SRS payments? And so allowing for some level of predictability here is so important. I think that there is still much more that needs to be done, and I know that you have committed to working on that through your position there in finance. But again, when you're a small community in the Tongass, whether you're Petersburg or Craig or Yakutat, it's pretty tough to find other taxable bases to sustain your community, your schools, your roads. So this is something that we want to keep working on, so I appreciate that. And to that vein, Chief, and Senator Wyden mentioned we've got a vote that has just started, but I wanted to ask about a couple Alaska issues that are clearly getting the attention of folks back home. It was last year at this budget hearing we talked about getting the cut up on the Tongass. We discussed some of the changes that we discovered in the 16 land plan, and it was at that time when we were discussing what is possible, what can we expect. The service said that we could expect to meet a 50 million board foot target in 18. Just last week, I got the performance report from Region 10 that shows that just 9 million board feet of timber was sold in 18. So once again, you come to the hearing, we say, we're going to work with you, we're going to get it up, we're going to see the impact to these communities. So here we are. Basically what happened, and what is the plan here to turn around the timber program there in the Tongass?
Senator, I really understand your concern and I share it. This is serious, and it's
9 million board feet in the nation's largest national forest.
Yes, I understand, Senator. I share your concern, and there are challenges operating in Southeast Alaska, but that is still not a reason not to improve the performance. You know that I have committed that we need to do better. We're building back our skills. We're taking a different approach on the landscape, taking a large landscape approach to clearing our environmental analysis and decision making. In mid-March, we did sign a decision on the Prince of Wales large landscape.
And that was good. I do appreciate that. I do hope that we'll be able to expect more significant timber opportunities there on Prince of Wales with that landscape assessment.
Yes, we 15 to 25 million board feet annually will be available to come off. It's cleared off of that large landscape assessment, and this summer we'll be in the final throes of the Central Tongass landscape scale assessment, and that will an additional 15 to 25 million from that landscape. In addition, we're really leveraging with the state of Alaska the good neighbor agreements where they can come in and construct sales that they've had a few challenges as well, but we've been able to get 2 sales sold with the good neighbor agreement. And as you know, for a bridge, we worked very hard on the Mental Health Trust Phase 1 so that the Viking Mill will have the supply of old-growth timber it needs. And we are working with the All Landowners Group in Southeast Alaska to collectively deal with these challenges. Columbia Helicopter has
no longer
left Alaska. 20% of our timber target for 2019 was to be helicopter logging. So we have to work fast and aggressively with these other landowners to attract that resource.
Chief, that's where I have such frustration. We knew last summer when I was up there, we were told, we're out of here. Everybody that was in the region knew and understood that, and yet we still are kind of planning that is how we would harvest when the folks that are on the ground know that that's not realistic. So just being honest with the appraisal here and the assessment of how we're actually able to do any level of harvest. And again, it is expensive to harvest up there. We understand that. We know that. We've been dealing with this for decades. So I am frustrated every time I have this conversation with either the Chief of the Forest Service or the Secretary of Agriculture, because I hear that we're with you, we understand you, but then year after year, we come to these budget hearings, and in fairness, the proof in terms of what we've been able to see with levels of harvest have been very, very disappointing. So I am somewhat optimistic with the agreement that was signed, the POW lot. That's important moving forward. We're all working with you, and we really, really appreciate the commitment from the teams that are focused on the Alaska-specific roadless, the rulemaking there. It's my understanding that we're still on target time-wise for that draft EIS. Is that your understanding?
We are absolutely highest priority. We're on time for the draft EIS this
And that's
early summer.
Early summer,
Yep.
good. And then with regards to the inventory that I had requested a couple years ago to complete the comprehensive inventory to determine the volume and the timing, what is the status of that inventory, and what is the service plan to do with that data when it is available?
You bet, Senator. The field work of the inventory, all the last 3 years, nearly 32,000 acres were inventoried. And again, it's to give us a much clearer picture about the mix between old growth and the viable second
Getting
growth.
that information before we act was, I thought, a pretty straightforward way to operate. Let's understand what it is that we have and the timing. So we're now getting through to that inventory.
Yes. So the inventory is complete, and the analysis, we're working very closely with the state of Alaska together on the analysis. And the final report will be expected late this summer. And, you know, it will help us really see what that transition looks like, and we will make the necessary adjustments in the forest plan as
That
needed.
was the question that I was going to ask, is it's one thing to get the data to understand that inventory, but then how will we use that to address the plan itself?
As I've committed in the past, we will do the appropriate forest plan amendments with the real data that will be apparent in just the months ahead.
Okay. Then just very quickly, because I've got to get down to the vote there, nobody has really mentioned the beetle kill in Alaska. It's spruce bark beetle. There was a time when down on the Kenai Peninsula, the beetle just ran through that part of the state, and now we're seeing it move further north into the Matsu Valley, into the Anchorage area. It really is striking as I drive around and fly around to see how these beetles have moved northward. Can you give me an update on what the Forest Service is doing with regards to surveys to understand what's the extent that we're seeing? Because it's clearly on the rise in Alaska, and I would imagine that we've got similar infestations in other parts of the country that you're following.
Absolutely, Senator. We have working with our forest health protection staff and Alaska Division of Forestry. It is primarily on state and private lands right now. So we.
This is the area that's north of Anchorage then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And there's a spruce beetle working group.
Mm-hmm.
So we can help better prepare communities and help landowners with safeguarding their trees. And we are looking together at new methods of suppression in Alaska, some systemic insecticides and a anti-aggregate pheromone are in research trials right now. And so we are using our Western Bark Beetle initiative to fund the state of Alaska to help do this work.
Does this require some form of a match from the state? How are you working with the
Yes,
state on this?
it's our cooperative forest
Right.
authorities that does require a match from the state. They can use, their fire funds. It's a pretty broad match.
Okay.
That's the beauty of the state and private function of the Forest Service. Mm-hmm.
Well, it is something that I'm going to want to try to get a better handle on it, working with the state and their folks. We're dealing with some relatively significant budget issues up in the state, and this is something where I know there's a very, very keen interest. It was this area that was hit,
Yep.
the Sockeye fires several years back, just devastated
Yep.
that area. And I'm not quite sure about these different applications that you're talking about.
They're just research trials, but
Okay,
we're
so-
through our research and development, we're trying to lean into new learning.
Okay. Last question for you then, and I'll turn it over to Senator Gardner. And this is the air tanker issue. Back in FY12, Forest Service initiated a study on the effectiveness of the aerial firefighting fleet, and it was supposed to help inform you to make better decisions on the use of aircraft and potentially lower the suppression costs. It's now been 7 years, and apparently we're still waiting for the final report. I asked, I guess it was last year at this hearing, about the status on the report, and I was told that we were going to be getting an update on that relatively soon. So now we're a year later. So question is where is the report? Why is it taking so long? And how much of the Forest Service wildfire budget has been used for aerial wildfire fighting in the past 5 years? And what I'm trying to get at, and we've had this conversation before, is are we being smart? These are expensive assets. Are we using them as wisely and efficiently as we can?
Yeah, I absolutely share your concern and your questions. And the aerial firefighting use and effectiveness study, was initiated in 2012. I am low on patience as well, Senator, but this is it's a complex and labor-intensive endeavor to
But
actually.
should it really require 7 years to get a
Well,
report like this?
To have enough, when you have to take these assessment teams and they have to be on the fire scene and you have to get enough data to get what the trend line is, it does take some time. We have some early results that show that definitely the direct attack strategies with helicopters are the most effective. And close behind that, the direct attack with the large air tankers are also, we're confident in their effectiveness. The early results are showing that the indirect attacks, where we would lay retardant or water out, away from the fire boundary and it's going to burn to it. Now that's where we have more concerns about the effectiveness and we'll be drilling in deeper. And I'd be glad to, I know our staff's been keeping your staff informed, but I'd be glad to get our staff up here and drill deeper into this with you.
Well, I think that I know that there's members of the committees that are interested in this, and perhaps at the hearing that we have in a month or so about the fire report, maybe you can be prepared to give us a little more update on that, because again, what we're trying to do here, we dealt with the fire fix last year. We're going to end fire borrowing. We're going to try to be smarter there, but I think it is only right that we really ensure that we're spending wisely when it comes to the fire suppression assets.
You bet.
So I understand that getting the data takes some time, but 7 years is a long time to try to get a better handle on things. And if it is 7 years where we're not being as effective as we could, we have to address that. So I'll look forward to more conversation with you there.